I even suggested that they should advise Abuja of weather condition with a view to having the flight cancelled. At that point, I was informed that the aircraft was airborne at about 1,745 hours. I became concerned as to whether the aircraft would be able to land at the airport in such a heavy rainfall storm. The rain had started falling then. Thus, I was not surprised when Air Commodore Ilo informed me that we had to go to the Civil International Airport, as the NAF runway was not long enough to enable the aircraft to land under the atrocious weather condition. We then set off for the international airport, but at a snail speed due to the heavy rainfall, which was accompanied with shale ice particles. The former GOC further said, when we got to the vicinity of the airport, there was a thunderous sound, which I thought was the sound of thunder. We had earlier sighted what I believed was the aircraft descending to land on the runway. When we turned the bend to enter the tarmac, the thought on my mind was that the aircraft had touched down and was taxiing to the parking area. I couldn't see any aircraft on the runway. I frantically looked around, and by the far side of the runway there was a fireball. It was the aircraft conveying General Attahiru. We got out the vehicles, crossed the runway and approached the burning aircraft. Firefighters were on hand to put out the blaze. At some point, we had to pull back due to the fear of exploding cylinders. We later recovered the corpses of the 10 passengers on board the ill-fated plane far from where the plane wreckage was. Apparently, their bodies, which were on fire, were flung from the aircraft before it came down, already in flames. Furthermore, the aircraft, or what was left of it, at least what I could recollect, was on a relatively flat grassland. There was no crater. This was indicative of a media explosion. So, what caused the aircraft to explode? I wonder what the Air Safety and Accident Investigation Bureau report says about the incident. AliKeffi further queried, was the flight deliberately delayed in order to be caught up in the rainstorm? Was the aircraft sabotaged, which caused it to explode midair? Was the explosion caused by explosives? Was a bomb planted in the aircraft or contained in a parcel, which a passenger unknowingly carried? AliKeffi had earlier written to Tinubu over his arrest, detention and compulsory retirement, following the revelations of a presidential investigative task force that he headed. The inquest had exposed the involvement of senior government officials, a top banker, and top military brass in terrorism financing. He was head of OPS, which was set up by former President Muhammadu Buhari to investigate those allegedly involved in terrorism financing. AliKeffi said he headed a presidency-instituted board of inquiry, the BOI, convened by Major General BM Monguno, ATD, the former National Security Advisor, NSA, which sat in the office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, for 5 weeks, from early January to late February 2020. He stated, I was the president of the BOI, with members/secretary drawn from the NCS, NIS, DSS, NIA, ONSA, NFIU. The Board of Inquiry, which largely conducted its work as an investigative body, was tasked to investigate circumstances surrounding the illegal smuggling of petroleum products contained in 168 oil tankers into Benin Republic through a single smuggling route in Ilisa Babra in Kwara State. AliKeffi said the BOI went further to uncover 295 oil tankers that conveyed premium motor spirit, PMS, with the major smugglers identified. He said, the petition stated that the BOI made a significant discovery regarding the relationship between the smuggling racket, the terrorism besetting the Northeast, the banditry/kidnapping for ransom, which was at its formative stage in the Northwest and part of North-Central geopolitical zones, the illegal mining of minerals in the Northwest and North-Central, and large-scale laundering of mostly funds meant for counterterrorism/insurgency operations that was ongoing mostly in the northern regions of the country. A syndicate, which had extensive network in the country as well as being affiliated to international criminal network, was as the center of moving finances for terrorism for other criminal activities stated above. AliKeffi revealed, the most worrisome aspect was that some of the individuals involved in terrorism financing of Boko Haram terrorists and who were also involved in procurement and movement of arms and ammunition for BH and other criminal organizations had links with the military. It was, thus, apparent that terrorism and insurgency in the Northeast, Northwest, and North Central were a criminal enterprise and were largely undertaken with profit rather than any ideology, as the primary motive. Thus, we at the BOI arrived at the obvious conclusion that progress cannot be achieved except the financiers, collaborators, supporters and the leadership of the terrorist and insurgents groups are identified and the network dismantled. The Nigerian Air Force, NAF, constituted an audit committee 4 days after the Kaduna air crash that claimed the lives of Attahiru and other officers to investigate the incident. The then Chief of the Air Staff, CS, Air Marshal Oladeo Ameo, formed a team of serving and retired senior officers to conduct a safety audit of all NAF operational and engineering units. Air Force spokesman, Air Vice Marshal Edward Gapquet, said in a statement at the time of the crash that the committee was to, among others, analyze safety reports from operational and engineering units, conduct safety evaluation of NAF units, and recommend safety measures. It said the team would also interact with unit operational and technical personnel for views, observations, and contributions on safety measures. Chaired by Air Vice Marshal Abraham Ado, then Deputy Theatre Commander, Operation Harding KAI, the committee was to submit its report not later than June 18, 2021. The Accident Investigation Bureau, AIB, in collaboration with Nigerian Air Force also submitted an interim report on the Air Force aircraft, King Air 350. Presenting the report to Ameo, former Chief Executive Officer of AIB, Akin Olatru, said the report contained 27 findings and 8 recommendations for immediate implementation. Although the statement, jointly signed by Gapquet and his AIB counterpart, Tonji Okotombi, did not contain the details of the recommendations, the statement said the report was organized into 3 sections. It said, the submitted report is organized into 3 sections, namely, the information obtained in the course of the investigation, analysis of data collected in view of the board's terms of reference and the conclusion, which covers the initial findings and immediate recommendations. The statement also said the final report would contain more detailed information. But it was not made public. When contacted, defense spokesman, Brig Gen Tukaguso, promised to react to AliKeffi's claims but referred the reporter to the army. Let me see if I can get a response. You should also call the army, he said. Spokesmen for the Army and Air Force were not forthcoming with any response at the time of filing the report.